Indeed, you're very welcome to another edition of the What Matters programme, where we actually have live debates, uncensored, unedited, and people speaking freely on the international and local platforms. So we don't do editing here unless there's cursing, defamatory or slanderous statements, but that's never happening here on learmedia.tv. I want to say a very special welcome to Murlock, Sinéad, and now joining us for the first time is Micky McDonald. All three of you, very welcome and great to see you today.
Yep.
Now, to set the score, Sinéad, could I just ask you to start about deregistering and 1938? Just fill listeners in about what is happening, please.
Okay, so at the moment we are ruled under a constitution that came about in 1937. So previous to that constitution, we had a constitution called the 1922 Constitution. So the 37 Constitution was a plebiscite. So what that means is it can only be there legally through consent. So you have to consent to those rules and regulations, and you do that through your registration to vote. So within that constitution, there's a disclaimer, and it's in Article 6, and it's the common good. It's basically the people have a right to elect rulers, and they decide all policies, all laws, everything that's in accordance with the common good. So for me, that's a huge warning signal because it's very subjective. The goalposts can be moved, and who decides what the common good is. We also don't have any enforceable rights in that constitution. So in the Supreme Court ruling of Ryan versus the Attorney General, the ruling was that no rights are absolute. So in the 1922 Constitution, we had a Bill of Human Rights. So we had enforceable rights, but they were removed when we accepted the 1937 Constitution. So deregistering from the 1937 Constitution through removing your consent, removing your name from the electoral register, if we get a majority of the voting population, which would be 50.00001% or 51%, once it's over 50%, it means we default back to the 1922 Constitution, which I might add is not perfect. However, it does have more protections in it. When we get back to that, that's the first step. We then have more powers in it. We have a voice. We can put a petition has power. We can put referendums to the people, and we can see about, I suppose, drafting a new constitution, really, because the 1922, although has more protections for us, isn't fit for purpose either. It's kind of like the lesser of two evils. But for me, the 37 has to go. We've no rights. And the definition of a slave, nobody likes being called a slave, but the definition of a slave is somebody who has no rights. And just to finish off, slavery is illegal only if you consent to it. So you need
who would consent to slavery?
Exactly.
No, Sinead. Fine. Now, Micky McDonald, you're very welcome. Then I'll be turning over then to Murlock. Now, Micky, what is your point of view on this? Okay, we have 1937, 1922, 1937. So what is your opinion on all of this, Micky?
Yeah, well, where can I start? Sovereignty. Only sovereigns can write a constitution.
Okay.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
But on the poster here, this is I don't know how well you can see it, but this is a familiar poster. Everybody knows about it. And you see here in the hierarchy of laws, the universal, natural, moral laws of maxim, also known as God laws. These laws come straight from the Bible and are the highest laws of the land. They're the rights given by God to all beings and cannot be taken away by anyone. Sovereign human being, a being that is master of self, operates under God's law, has the ability to create laws, and constitutions, yeah,
Okay.
for itself and corporations that it creates. And but we are in the Corporation of Ireland. We are only, from our birth cert, our straw man, we're only slaves. Our parents were tricked to register us with the birth cert.
Okay.
And
Now,
we were registered, we're collateral. We're being farmed. We're educated through brainwashed through an education system.
yes,
If you only know so much, people can only educate them so much. You only know what you're shown. We're dumbed down through the education system. We're treated like slaves. Whatever school you go to, if you've got money, you go to a good school, you get a good job, you get a good education, you go up the system, you're a good copycat. You're good at remembering things. You're not good at learning things. You're good at remembering things. This is a system. It's copycat, obedience. You do what I tell you. You can get 2 or 3 answers for the same question, but you have to do the one there, or otherwise you fail the test. Yeah.
Now, you see, I actually can link into that, and I'll tell you why. I'll be coming tomorrow for his opinion now very shortly. I have got to know another man in County Limerick, a great man who speaks your language about the Corporation of Ireland, profit only, sovereignty.
Yeah.
I have learned can only come from God.
Exactly.
So I have learned through that. But would you believe this? Billy McGuire is the man's name. And talk about airbrushing essential facts out of history. In 1918, a general election, a 32 county election was called by the British government.
Yeah.
And all the various parties were involved at that time, including the IRB Sinn Féin and other the unionist parties as well were involved. But the IRB won 73 seats out of 120 seats, and the rest were divided up pro rata. First of all, we never heard of the 1918 general election in our schools, in our history.
Yeah.
We never knew it was the British government that called it, and we never knew that the IRB Sinn Féin won the majority of the seats. And yet, just like 1918, 1917, 1922, as Sinead has said, all airbrushed out to create a mechanism and a system of where obedience of the population is the essential value. Now, that's my reading of it. Am I right or am I wrong?
Well, what I'm trying to say about the Constitution is, I've already said about sovereign, only sovereigns can create a constitution, or corporations, yeah.
Yes.
What I'm saying is, De Valera wasn't sovereign. So that's one reason that's worthless.
Yes.
That's one point.
Is that a passport?
No.
Sorry.
The Constitution.
Oh, pardon me, the Constitution, yes.
Yeah. So it's really worthless.
It's worthless.
Worthless. Plus, how many frauds have been revealed in the creation of this? You had drafts which were never passed as law, but they're in the book. So that's fraud. And once you get fraud, all documentation from that fraud is null and void from the start.
Null and void.
So the Constitution is null and void because there's fraud exposed. Pat Clonasy a couple of years ago exposed fraud in it, and we couldn't do nothing with it. So there's a reason to do it. There's fraud exposed. Once fraud is exposed, all documentation, contracts, constitutions, whatever from that is all null and void. So that's null and void from the start.
Ask the question there, Mick. Who decides whether it's null and void? How do you go about enforcing that?
It's common sense. That's null and void. Show people. People have to think for themselves. It's null and void.
I know, but you said yourself, we're ruled by law in this country. So if you want to say the Constitution is null and void, you can't just say to people, this is null and void. It has to be enacted somewhere. So who does it?
You can
How do we
show
go
the
about
people where it's null and void. You can educate
I know, but then
people
what though?
where it's null and void, and where it's null and void comes from the sovereignty. Only sovereigns can draw up contracts or constitutions.
But we're ruled by law though. So how?
You'd
have to bring it to court. You'd have to present
it to what court? Bring it to what? A crime court, and ask their permission.
Well, then I don't understand how you could just say the Constitution is null and void and we all just decide it's null and void. That just doesn't make sense to me.
I asked Murlock during the week to educate himself in what's legal and what's sovereign. Sovereign is the living soul. What's legal is the straw man, the dead soul, the crown dead soul that we're being farmed with. Now, when you're a slave, you ask permission. You need to deregister. When you're sovereign, you know you were never a slave and you never will be a slave, so you don't need to deregister.
Well, what happens if you end up in court?
In court? Is this Masonic courts where you pay for your sins with your money, your life, or your children's life? They can take the kids off you too if you don't comply. This is Freemasonry. You can ask them permission.
Okay, let me bring Murlock in. A lot to digest there, Murlock. An awful lot. What's your opinion?
Micky is not registered. Micky is not registered himself, but he would advise people who are registered to not deregister. To me, that doesn't make sense. I'm not registered. Sinead is not registered. Micky is not registered. You're registered, John. You told me you're going to deregister. Good for you. By the way, I'd also like to say well done to Micky for coming on here and debating with us in public.
That's what we need.
This is what we want to do. Micky is the only man.
We're not RTE or Virgin Media where everything is edited and choreographed.
And it's good to listen to all views. And I mean, at the end of the day, we're all on the one side. Like it is us and them. So I do feel.
What worries me about what Micky has said is this: that all of the amendments to this constitution could be null and void.
They could, but they couldn't really though, because you would have to have that enacted in court. We're ruled by law. You can't just decide.
You have to ask your slave master. Come on.
You do. Like, how can you do it? Everything boils down to the law in this country. So explain to me how we can turn around and say, listen, the Constitution's null and void. We want a new one.
But I give you an answer, Murlock, on this as well. I won't say I had a confrontation on the road with two cyclists, but the law has changed, and rightly so. Motorists shouldn't have the full say of the road. I totally agree. But these cyclists were coming out onto the centre of the road, and cars were lining up trying to pass them out. Very, very dangerous on a bend. Now, I said to a guard that I'm very friendly with, I said, look, what is the legal situation? Surely be to God, these cyclists should take account. I mean, isn't there common sense? And he said, there's your problem, John. The law and common sense don't interact. So in line with what Micky has said, Sinead and Murlock are saying as well, that there is no common sense in any of this. When what you're saying is that we are actually slaves to a system that is fraudulent, Micky.
Yeah.
By consent.
Murlock. One Murlock, sorry.
Slaves by consent, legal slaves. Slaves by consent. You're not just slaves, like slavery has been abolished. Slavery by consent is legal. That's what that is. That's illegal. Like, I'm not arguing with Micky, like that little blue book he holds up like this, it's used for committing legalized treason. I'm not arguing with him. It's not worth the paper it's written on. And the only way you could defend you with that is to batter somebody with it. It's worthless. It's bloody worthless.
So what you're saying is the Constitution is worthless.
Yeah, but we've consented to it though. So we've got to get everybody to remove their consent. So Micky, you're not really making sense because
well, you're not making sense because
you're deregistered and you're telling people you're kind of,
if you don't recognize it, if you recognize it's fraud, why would you deregister?
Well, why did you deregister?
But I'm asking you.
I
How
deregistered.
much is deregistered?
I deregistered because I know the system will never change under that constitution.
So how will 51% deregistering 20 to 30 years from now make a difference? And what about the 17,000 legal immigrants coming in of the 4 million government planned legal immigrants?
Where are you getting this 30 years from, Mickey? You keep saying 20 years from. Where
You
you
know-
that from? Is
you
that
know
factual
the-
record? Have you got some paper proof there to say what you're saying? Why is
It's all opinion.
Now, Murlock, you're distracting.
I'm not. I'm
Are
asking
you
you.
going
where-
to tell us, have these 17,000 legal immigrants any impact on you deregistering?
Legal immigrants do not have, they still have to be registered through their
Yeah,
own
within-
consent.
within
They're not
4 months.
forced to, they're not forced to register
Within
to
4
vote.
months of landing here, they'll be registered. And
No,
Irish.
they have to register themselves.
No,
You cannot force
You
them to
can't have a
register.
house unless you're registered. You have to be registered somewhere.
Yeah, not to register to vote though.
You
Not,
wouldn't get in the country.
how?
Just
You know that's
just
a
that
fact,
point,
Mickey. You know
Murlock.
that's a fact.
No, but just on that point, I'm not going to say illegal immigrants because they're coming from war-torn countries. Their backgrounds are investigated, and they become citizens eventually, if that's the case, or else.
Oh, it's nearer than me.
But Murdoch, the one thing is though, when immigrants come into the country, are they entitled to vote, or do they have to wait?
They have to become citizens, but they're not forced to register. It's up to them, the same way it's up to us to register. You cannot
Yes.
force slavery on somebody. They have to consent to it of their own free will.
Can I make a point to Murdoch here and Mickey then and Sinead? As I'm listening to you, like it is very technical and your delivery is fantastic. What I want to know is this, for viewers' sake and my own, because I'm only a layman, an ordinary Joe so. When we had 1917, what happened that all these changes, as you said, the common good, Sinead, what happened to make that change so rapidly against the common good?
Well, basically, in the 1922 Constitution, we
Yes.
had, which was given, well, it was forced onto us as well, and it isn't a perfect document either. We had a Bill of Human Rights. So then De Valera, and I think the guy's name was Hearn, he was the legal guy who drafted it. Between the two of them, they stripped out our voice, they stripped out direct democracy, and it was coerced from De Valera and the church on the people. And basically it got through on 56% majority, but there was loads and loads of spoiled votes. There was, as far as I know, there was more spoiled votes than yes and no votes put together.
Okay.
So it got through, and I think De Valera was the first then to rule under those regulations. I think they won the election narrowly because the election was held on the same day. And from that day to this, we have been ruled under a constitution that has no mechanism for us to hold our leaders to account. We had that in the 1922. We are ruled under a constitution that has enabled our mineral resources to be put up for privatization. That wasn't in the 1922. We are ruled without the ability to call our own referendums. That was in the 1922. We have no enforceable rights, which I mentioned before. We had a Bill of Human Rights. It's unbelievable. We've less rights here than the EU citizens coming into the country.
I see what you mean, yes. Murdoch, I just want, before I go back to Mickey there on that, from what I can gather is that Eamon de Valera, with the respect to his principles, etc. as well, there was a form of a dictatorship creeping in. Now, that's the way I can pick it up, because dictatorship...
To be fair, you're right, because his party was the only one who wanted it. Every other party didn't want it, and they all said it would lead to a totalitarian state, which it has done.
Which it has done. Murlock, your opinion on that?
Yeah, well, look, I'm looking for the positives here in this debate today, and I can see that we all agree that the De Valera contract is a have to go. how do we get rid of this slavery contract? We're suggesting a mass deregistration. I don't know how Mickey suggests that we get the nation to move away from that contract. They are contracted to it, whether he likes it or not. Man reaches the age of 18 and he's offered to sign that contract, and he signs it because he's been programmed through the state schools. It's to your advantage to sign that contract. So I'm saying, like, this is our suggestion, that we say the peaceful, lawful mass deregistration, because that lawfully reverses plebiscite that enacts the free contract. But I'd like to know what Mickey's solution is, rather than damning our suggestion.
Right, Mickey, what would your practical suggestion be there to what Murlock and Sinead have been? Will it take a mass, how would I say, protest out there to deregister and to overturn what they call a fraudulent constitution in legal terms?
We agree.
Mickey, yep.
Yeah, protesting's no good. We've seen 120,000 on the streets, done no good. The water protest. And when you're saying citizen, a citizen is a slave of the corporation to which it pledges. Well, you're talking about, you're using citizen there, but you don't understand the meaning of it.
Okay.
A slave to the corporation to which it pledges does not have rights. This is why you're saying you have no rights. You don't have rights.
I know, but you're giving your alternative, though.
No, this is no alternative. This is fact. Don't be trying to confuse
you're supposed to be giving your alternative.
You only have privileges, which what you're saying, you have no rights. You only have privileges. So you're admitting to being a citizen, and a citizen is a slave of the corporation.
But what would you do then? Because that's what the question was. What would you do to get to
what can be done?
I've already said it.
What?
Sovereignty. Sovereigns. Only sovereigns can create contracts or constitutions.
But you haven't given it. What do you do? You've just said sovereign. What does that mean?
Could you let me finish what I'm saying?
Okay.
Instead of asking questions, you know.
Yeah, we just wanted to look. Yeah.
What I'm saying is.
No, let me finish there. Yeah.
What I'm saying is, this is where you're claiming to be a citizen. Down at the bottom, you're a citizen. This is what, when you're talking about citizens, you're a slave. You only have privileges. When you're sovereign from birth to death. This is before the corporation. From birth to death, you get it direct from God. You don't get it from religion or no institutions. You have your own advice, you know yourself. And that's sovereign under universal natural moral laws, the maxim. It is morals. There's no morals in this dead soul trade ship, well, called the law and justice. These crown courts, there's no morals. It's all dead souls. You pay for your sins with money, your life, or your children's life. That's what I'm saying. Sovereignty is above the citizen slave.
So what about the rest of the politicians?
You don't need to ask the crown permission when you're sovereign.
Okay. Well, what about the rest of us then, Mickey? Because we're not sovereign. So what do we do then?
Murlock keeps claiming he's sovereign, but he's not. You've just admitted you're not sovereign. Everybody's sovereign when you're educated enough to be sovereign. It's only when you're not educated enough, you're the citizen slave. And then you ask permission to deregister.
Mickey, you don't pay
Okay, Murlock.
You don't pay electricity, Mickey, is that correct? You don't pay SB bill, is that correct?
What has this got to do with it?
You don't do any of this stuff.
What has this got to do with anything? This is
not if you're sovereign, I mean, you wouldn't have to, would you?
Now you're playing games. You're playing games.
I can see where Murlock is coming from.
Your distraction.
No. I know sovereign people that don't pay electricity bills. But Mickey,
you don't even know what sovereign means. You don't even know what sovereign means.
I don't bloody know what it means. You haven't explained it very well. You're supposed to give us an alternative to deregistration, and all you keep doing is pulling down that sign and saying sovereign and telling people that the Constitution is fraud.
That
doesn't do anything. That does absolutely nothing.
Again for you, right? I'll say it again. This is the third time trying to explain it.
No, one, Mickey, one, yes.
Yeah. Now, for the third time, only sovereigns can draw up constitutions, contracts. Yeah, can everybody agree that?
Yes.
Yeah. So everybody agrees that. So if only sovereigns can draw up a constitution,
Yes.
and De Valera was not sovereign, unless you're saying De Valera was sovereign, De Valera couldn't draw up a constitution. So therefore, that his constitution is null and void from the start, as well as all the corruption that's been exposed with it. Once a crime, once a fraud is being exposed, all contracts null and void from the start. That's common sense.
No,
accountability.
I'm just linking in there because basically to the three of you then, my understanding of what all of you have said is we need a new constitution with the Bill of Rights for the common good.
No. We don't want the common good disclaimer at all. That common good needs to go. The common good needs to go. That disclaimer we don't want at all. It's too subjective. Who decides what the common good is?
Well, I would, as a layman again, I would look upon the common good, what was written in to the 1916 Constitution that I read out in Askeaton the other day. And it has drilled into my head the sentiments, cherishing all the people of the country equally. Big statement, equally. And we don't have that now.
No, we don't. But the common good's too subjective.
Homelessness.
Like, define what the common good is. You can't.
That is the common good.
Well, you can move the God. Well, look at what's happening now, though. Look at what's happening now, and the new laws that they're bringing in. You know, all of the COVID laws. They're all being done for the common good.
Yes.
You can never read the goalpost for the common good can always be moved.
But
you know what I mean?
No, I understand, and Murlock, I just make the statement as well. You see, when it's not for the common good, and I have an axe to grind in this, state pensioners, they get a set amount every week, right? And a paltry €5 per week increase then, if they're lucky, per budget. And we have the Minister for Finance expounding with his goonies and RTE that, it's costing millions and millions to the Exchequer to do this, €5 paltry. Yet, they can give themselves a massive increase for themselves. The politicians I'm talking about, who govern the state for the common good. And is that for the common good then, when they can give themselves no problem whatsoever? And for one particular, ratified by the Dáil, 81,600 for one individual civil servant. To me, that is disgusting. And
how would you go about correcting that? If you had a new constitution now and you were allowed to put something in it, what would you put in that to prevent that happening in the future?
Well, I put it like this to you. I'd kick out the trade unions because as far as I can see, they're colluding with government.
Would you not put a mechanism in there, though, that enables us to be able to say, hang on a second.
Yes.
And recall.
I'll tell you what I would put in. If I was there with the Attorney General and all other people involved, from homelessness to charitable organisations, all involved in having their say in the writing of a new constitution, I would say there will be an automatic cap on high earners, politicians, judges, everyone down, and not a penny more goes beyond that. And I would build that in. But you see, what they're doing cutely is, and it really vexes me, is that all they're doing is they're tinkering with all the outside. Every budget then that we have, every October is ratified by Germany. We've lost our, I know Mickey won't like this, we've lost our sovereignty, but we've lost our independent state.
It's been exchanged. Your sovereignty was exchanged in 1937.
Yes.
And to cover that fraud that was perpetrated, it was written to all your debt paid. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you see, Mickey is not registered, so it's easy for Mickey to say, you know, people shouldn't bother registering. But I don't know. I mean, to me, it's just a no-brainer. Like, I mean, you became 18 years of age and you were offered to sign this slavery contract, and you signed this. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Can I just add as well, like, there's talk in the papers now of an all-Ireland constitution. So like a cross-border one. At some point that this will probably become real. So
Yes.
do you think we're going to get a say in that new constitution if it does come about?
No.
No. So the only way we have a chance of having a say in that constitution is if we remove our consent from the one we have now, because in the 22 constitution, we had a right to recall, and we had a voice, and we had a right to call our own referendums. So we'd have more of a voice with that constitution. We should be using our vote now as a bargaining chip and using it in a completely different way to the way we normally use it. And we should be saying to whatever political party your persuasion is, we should be holding those parties to account if they're not upholding their promises, which they're not. And what we should be saying to them is, I'm removing consent. I'm not going to vote again until the system is changed. I can't see how people can't see how simple that is. Like, why would you not threaten, look, I am never going to vote again until the system is changed, until I have rights, until I have accountability over you when you mess up or if you mess up.
No,
How is that so hard to
very good
understand?
point. Right, let me put that to Mickey then. Mickey, if all of that, just say that we had a Harry Potter over here in Ireland who could create magic, and that we all had a say in the Constitution rather than those overpaid legals in Dublin. And with a new Constitution, could we possibly go towards a proper framework, a new Ireland in the 21st, 22nd century, whenever it becomes a reality, that will make us all accountable? What do you think?
Yeah. What we can do with the Constitution is, we've already proven it null and void. And we are all aware now that only sovereigns can write a constitution, and De Valera wasn't sovereign, so it's null and void. Even with Pat Clonassy's all he caught up in the legal.
Yes.
So it's null and void. So the next constitution has to be written by sovereigns. Corporations can't write a constitution. Corporations, and they're created by the sovereign.
Yes.
So,
right.
So the sovereign is above the corporations. So you can't have corporations writing constitutions for the sovereigns like De Valera done. It has to be the sovereigns. Sovereignty is above the corporations. If you want to study this, sovereignty is above all these corporations, contract laws, corporations, the police, the citizen slave.
Okay, let me put that to Murlock.
Yeah, the nation has exchanged its sovereignty for a welfare state, Mickey. This is the problem. And I can prove that with court paperwork. I can prove that. I don't know what you're laughing at. I've got a fine with my signature on it. Paid a fine with my signature.
Yeah.
How did I do it? I've never gone to jail. The paperwork is, since 20, I can get it here and I can show it to you. It's a fine that says that I'm going to jail if I don't pay this much money in 28 days. I signed my name on it and sent it back to him because I know the sovereignty was exchanged, that all my debts to the state are paid. It would cover that fraud, as you say it's a fraud, I'm not disputing that, but to cover the fraud, that was written into law. All my debts to the state are paid.
I have covered multiple things
I think
like
we're
that.
going off track here, really. We're supposed to be talking about deregistration.
Well, the point I'm making is we're not sovereign. We, the nation, are not sovereign, right? Mickey is sovereign. Okay, wonderful. He's sovereign on his own. I'm sovereign. That's great as well. But the nation changed their sovereignty in 1937.
Sovereignty is not for sale, Murlock. You get it direct from God. You get it direct from God. It's not for
You've
sale.
got to go to court to enforce your rights. God didn't give them to you, Mickey.
I just want to say that your alienable rights will tell you have the right to contract or to not contract.
Only sovereigns have inalienable
Yeah,
rights.
sovereigns.
Slaves
Many
don't have
sovereigns, is
inalienable
there?
rights. They only have
You know how
privilege.
many sovereigns there are in Ireland, Mickey?
What?
You know how many sovereigns there are in
Are you
Ireland?
trying to make fun of it? Yeah.
No, I'm asking you.
You're distracting from the point. Have you any idea?
Yes.
The
How
people
many?
that understand their
many?
sovereignty, is there many sovereigns there is in Ireland? The people that are educated in it, that know they're not slaves.
So how many? So
That's
do you
how
know
many
how
people-
many then?
What do you think? Do you
But
want
you
me to
see-
count them?
I'm
But we
asking
can
you a
Tell me how many
question.
have to registered.
But the problem
No,
is,
how many
got to
sovereigns
deregister.
are there in Ireland?
You're talking nonsense now.
How am I talking
They're
nonsense?
fairy stories. What do you want me to pick up? Do you want me to go on the computer and count up?
no. But I'll tell you
You're
something.
making fun
No.
now.
I was listening to your arguments there, and they're very, very well put. But the point is this: if we go back even into our own childhood, when we look at the way we were taught history and taught in narrow-mindedness, we weren't taught to think for ourselves. You're right there, Mickey, in the sense that we were railroaded into a way of thinking,
Yeah.
and we had no thinking for ourselves. So therefore, if you did your intercert and your leaving cert and you got points, you went up the ladder and you got your best of jobs.
Yeah.
Now, that's in
But you
contravention of the 1916 proclamation. Because the children in this country are not cherished equally. It's as simple as that. And with the greatest of respect for people, non-nationals coming into this country for the first time, they're getting a far better deal than our own Irish people. I'm not racist in any way, but what I am saying is that we are not being cherished equally by the state.
We're not. We are a lower class of citizen than the EU citizens have a Bill of Human Rights. We don't. It was signed into our constitution, but it's at a lower level, and we don't have to go by the EU. We have to go by Irish law. So we are a lower class of citizen than our EU.
Yeah, Mickey has a billboard behind him, okay? It's not, I don't know what it is, but this here is a court fine.
Yes.
From a crime court. Is that the crime court you went to?
Sorry, Mickey, I just want to make a point there. That's okay.
Court, will you admit to the
Murlock, go on. So, sorry, Mickey.
Make a point there, can I?
Let Murlock make a point. Sorry, go on.
Point, is that okay? That's thank you.
What is that?
This is a court fine with my name on it, and it's an offer, day money, or to be locked up for 28 days.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's dated 2015, okay? And you can't read it, maybe, but
It's okay, go on.
it says across it here, accepted for value, returned for value, and name is signed across it, and it's sent back to them by registered post.
Yeah.
Now, that's because I know that sovereignty was exchanged in 1937.
Okay.
All debts to the state are paid. I am this personal representative. I am the executive of the state. Irish courts are paper courts and courts of precedent.
Yeah.
There's my paper, and that's my precedent.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it means.
Is that the crime court? Is that the crime court you're referring to? Is that under Admiralty law?
It is, yeah.
Is that under Admiralty law? Yeah.
This
Is that under Admiralty law?
This is Crown Court paperwork, yeah.
Yeah.
They offered me to pay them
You're under
money.
the crime.
I didn't pay them money. I gave them my
Yeah, hold on a second. Mickey, let me ask that now. You didn't pay the money.
No, I didn't. No.
Yeah.
Right. So what happened then, do you mind me saying?
Oh, I've been in court many times since. They don't mention.
And yeah, but you don't pay the fine if there's a fine imposed.
The fines are because the state exchanged their sovereignty
Yes.
for that fact.
I would just like to say, I just wouldn't be recommending this to anybody, to be honest, because you can get, like, this can blow up in your face in court. Do you know what I mean? So I think we should go back to the subject of deregistration and not about paying for fine.
Okay,
signature.
I'll come back to you in 1 minute. Just Sinead on that point. If hundreds of thousands of people went out next Monday morning and deregistered,
Yeah.
what happens then?
So I'll be extremely honest with you. It's not going to be easy at all because we don't have the numbers. The county councils hold the numbers. So where we are is at the very beginning of a timeline, let's just say. Yes. And we just need to educate people. And I think this is my opinion, and I've nothing to back it up with, but what I see happening is if and when we get the momentum going, you will see people of, I suppose, public figures will come on board. And that's where we might get some media attention. I don't know. But it's going to take, it's not going to work overnight. It's about educating people and I suppose just showing them exactly what you get for your vote in this country, which is nothing because you don't get to elect the power in this country. The people you are electing don't make the decisions. So we should be using our vote, as I said earlier, in a completely different way than what we normally do. We should be saying to, like, I'd love all of the political parties to unite under this. This is the one thing we can unite under, because a lot of people will say, oh, you'll never get 51%. Well, let me tell you, you're never going to get hardcore Fianna Fáil voters to vote for Sinn Féin and vice versa. So it's the exact same way. We've never tried this before. And it's something that we need to try. And it's something that the whole country could unite under because like their own political parties aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. And there are disillusioned voters out there as well as the hardcore.
Can I just make, before I go finally to Mickey and then wrap it up, I know many of the, I call them foot soldiers of each party, Labour, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, and they are totally disillusioned with what's going on in the cabinet in Dublin 4, as they call it. Totally removed from the ordinary man, woman and child on the street. And maybe that's the catalyst now that could move this on. Mickey, finally, can I just have a few words from you, please?
If I could just come back to Sinead there. She said if she got 100,000, they'd register tomorrow morning.
Oh, I didn't say
that. It wouldn't make no difference.
I didn't say that.
You did. If you got 100,000 that they registered tomorrow morning, it wouldn't make any difference.
John said 100,000. I never mentioned.
The reason being is because you don't know how many have to register.
I know. I don't know. And it's exactly what I just
what's
said.
The point? You never will know how many they registered.
Hang on. That's your opinion.
How many have to register now?
That is your opinion.
You haven't got a clue. You don't know.
I don't have a clue. I absolutely.
And Murlock has a 20 to 30 year plan.
But does that not? Does that not? You put the question.
17,000.
Does that not show the importance of those numbers? Does that not show the importance, the secrecy behind those numbers?
How are you going to get the numbers when you don't know them?
Well, what's your suggestion? We all go around and say, hang on, I'm sovereign, it's grand, the Constitution's null and void.
Okay, let me finally come in here to Murlock. Sorry, Murlock, your opinion on this then.
I'm saying Mickey finds himself in the same boat because he just admitted that he doesn't know how many sovereign people exist. So it's the same thing.
But can I actually say this though? From my own experience in the last year and a half, talking to Billy McGuire and the IRB and great people, and the people of this country, I honestly feel that there's a change happening. There's a conversation, there's a point of view starting to emerge, like what Murlock is saying, Sinead is saying, Micky McDonald is saying. It's happening. Now, it might take 10 years. God knows what age will I be then. I don't know. I don't even want to think. But what I'm saying is, it is happening.
People are thinking differently.
And I think that's a great thing that all of you and the other great people out there have started. People are disillusioned. They can see the elite of society getting more powerful and richer and richer and richer. And then the people losing their homes. The homelessness are just being fed away with empty promises and smart words. Very sad day for this country. But I honestly believe, if I can wrap this up, would you have a consent among you? A change is happening. Am I delusional or am I right? Yeah. Murlock.
Yeah, I think we all agree that the Little Blue Book is the book for legalising against the nation. All of us agree that. you know, Mickey, Sinead and myself all have the same opinion of the value of the Lyra contract. It has to go. Now, we're suggesting this way. Mickey is saying it's not the way, but I don't know. I mean, what is the way? Like, that's the question. Your idea, like, you know, you just pointed to the word sovereign. Like, I mean, that's not really.
But we leave the word sovereign, just not disrespecting about what the point I'm trying to make is for people out there that are listening and viewing this at home and abroad, is the change is happening. It might be slow.
It is happening, John. It is. It is. Definitely. It is happening. Yeah. You can see attitudes change.
And Mickey, to conclude, do you believe that the conversation is happening?
There's change happening in people being more educated in sovereignty. Deregistration will do absolutely nothing. I think what we should do is, last year, Joe Ducey put out the feelers for a 32 county sovereign political party to go in among them, fight among them. You can't get on the TV unless you're in politics.
You can't change the system from the inside, Mickey.
You can't get on the TV.
You can't change the system from the inside.
Could you speak? Could you let me have the manners to let me speak, please?
Okay, go on, Mickey. Sorry.
You can't change the system from the outside. You have to go among them. So Joe's idea, a 32 county sovereign political party, go among them, play their game, beat them at their own game, and you educate all the zombies, all the people who watch the TV. You educate all them. That way you get into the majority. And you take over the government with the biggest 32 county sovereign political party, and you control your own people, your own destiny. You don't need the Crown Corporation.
No, that's well put.
And that's how to legally beat them. To legally beat them at their own game.
But you're saying work within, not from
beat them from within.
But there's three arms to government, though. Murlock, tell them about three arms to government.
So I just want to say one thing. If you want to support your friend Joe Ducey, you better hurry along and register then, because you're going to have to vote for him, won't you?
Oh, you would, Murlock.
What can I say?
If you want to work,
I can only laugh at you.
If you want to work from the inside out, you have to play the game.
You can't. Can I just answer on that, just really, really quickly? When you become elected, you are working for the state then, so you don't represent the people. So there's three arms to government. So what Mickey is talking about can't happen, because he can't go in and change. You've got to sign that fiduciary duty. So you swear an allegiance to protect the state under that constitution. So change can't happen in the inside. You've seen it, like, for the last nearly 100 years. It hasn't happened.
And Mickey has to vote for him.
Yeah. And one more thing, John, if that's okay. I have a new Facebook page. If anyone would like to join, it's called Constitutional Change. Excuse me. It's a really inclusive page. I'd love anyone with any political persuasion to come along. And it's like an open forum. Just open it up for conversation. And I'm extremely polite on my page.
I started laughing to myself here, because I'm not laughing at the very serious subject matter that you tell. It is very serious, but I'm giggling to myself here, because the picture backdrop behind Sinead's profile is a boat moored on the water. I think if this country doesn't change quickly, we'll not be taking that boat out.
We're all in the same boat, John.
We're all in the same boat. Mickey, can I say a very sincere thank you? Thank you for your point of view. Very, very important. And I think it's great to have Near Media TV here, that we're able to debate the subject, all points of view, no editing, and we're not obliged or succumbing to any board of directors with political affiliations or bankers.
Nice to debate more people on the subject. I know what's that guy's name that Dennis did this.
Glenn Miller.
Glenn Miller, if you're watching this, I'd love to debate this subject with you.
I get this sorted.
Get it sorted, John.
Thank you so much indeed for joining us. Sinead, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks so much.
I want to actually get the three of you back again next week, if I may, because there is a subject that's very serious that I've only learned about. And it is, but we won't discuss it today because it's a lot of legal issues. The point is, Irish people in the 32 counties own the land. Own the land, right? So when a person is being or forced to be evicted, they still have that right to that land.
Do they?
And the bricks and mortar are only part of that. There's a big debate going to start happening in this country.
You're mixing up your words, though. You're mixing
Okay,
up your
go on.
words. No, a person is a two-dimensional fictional entity. A man of era, not of Ireland. Ireland is just their company on Dun and Bran Street.
Sorry, okay, good point.
The men and women of era are native to the land.
Very good.
But
Very
could
good
I add
point.
to that, please? John, could I say the sovereign men and women of Era?
Right.
Yes, exactly.
The sovereign men and women of Era.
Own the
Not the
land.
corporation. Not the corporation.
No, this is good. We'll this because it's a serious subject, and it's empowerment of the Irish men and women of Era. Thank you for that. Of Era.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Mark, lovely talking to you. Sinead,
Thanks
you
so
look
much.
great today. I love the hairstyle. Keep it up. You'll make us all look good. And Mickey, thank you indeed. And we'll be in touch again for another program on the What Matters with myself, John Prendergast, here on Lear Media TV and all of the connections. My special thanks to Dr. Mary Honan and to Pat Barry. And we'll be talking to you again in the next couple of hours. More programs on the way. Do listen in. Great music programs, great debate programs coming up. Thanks be to God we have a radio station that will cater for people's needs. From myself, John Prendergast, I'm so confused, but I feel great. Gordon Meal Market, August Slán.
Bye.
Thank you.